Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another exciting episode of Profile Matters. Hi guys, this is your host Cameron. I hope you guys are enjoying your month of October. God knows I am. It's my favorite time of the year. The pumpkins, the fall leaves, cooler weather, which is always a plus. Living out here where I live, it's always so hot. The costumes, and I don't know, there's something about it in the air. You can just sense the change and the harvest, and it's also I don't want to say archaic, because it's not archaic. It's traditions, and it's pretty cool. Our biggest thing this year for October, for the podcast, we decided we weren't going to cover like a serial killer or anything like that. We wanted to talk about stuff that scares us. What scares you? I know for me, I've got a couple of things. You're in at nighttime. You're at home, and you're in another room, and you're by yourself, and all the lights are off now. It's just the room you're in, but it's your house. It's quiet, unassuming, everything's just, normal. And you hear a sound. Something falls, or you thought you heard a footstep, or the floor creaks, and you wonder. You're like, should I check that out? 9 times out of 10, you don't. But if you do, you grab something to take with you, like your phone, or a knife from the kitchen, or a baseball bat that you might have tucked behind your couch, or something. And that's what it is, the primal fear. What scares you? For this particular episode, we decided we were going to do a sort of documentary type thing. We're going to ask a couple of people what scares them. What is the scariest thing? We'll do like a story of what's the scariest thing that ever happened to you. And then, of course, what's the scariest thing ever happened to you? And, of course, we're also going to do one where we're like, okay, what's your biggest fear? And we'll just kind of expound on that a little bit. And we're going to get a couple people here in a few minutes. I've got some family that wants to be a part of it, and I'm going to interview them and ask a couple things. My parents, and I think it'll be pretty cool and very eye-opening. They've got some pretty crazy stories. I know I've got one myself. But we're going to do all theirs, and I'll tell you my story towards the end. Well, you know what? Why not? I can go and tell you my story now. So one night, I was living over, I moved out on my own, finally, for the first time, and, I was older, and my roommate, he was in the military, so, he's now our executive producer, but he was in the military, and he was gone at basic training and stuff for, like, I don't know, it was like a month or two he was going to be gone, for, well, not basic, but, some sort of training thing that he was doing. We just moved into the new house, and it was a very sketch neighborhood, very rough neighborhood. And one night, I'm getting ready for bed, and I have everything all locked up, and I just get that weird feeling, like you're being watched. It's hard to explain. We've talked about it in other episodes. Your lizard brain, you can sense when something's wrong, and a lot of people will choose not to pay attention to those instincts, and it ends up getting them in trouble. Well, that particular night was kind of terrifying, because I thought I heard, it sounded like an animal was dying, like, like squealing. Like, I had never heard anything like it in my entire life. Like, scared me to death. It was so primal. The scream it was very scary. It was like, it was like a pig being slaughtered. It was crazy. I look outside, and I don't see anything. It's dark except for the streetlights out there. And I remember the neighborhood because all the streetlights had a habit of all going off. At a certain time in the night, they would flicker, and they eventually would just go off. I don't know why they would do that, but... and I look out there, and I don't see anything. But then the light flickers, and it comes back on, and there is a guy standing across the street. It could have been a woman too. I don't know. They were wearing like a big jacket. It was cold out because it was, around that time of the month where it would be chilly. It was like November, and it was like a big trench coat, and they had the hood up. like a hoodie on or something, and so I could not tell who it was. All I could see was the shadow, and they were just standing there. And they were looking the opposite direction, but then almost on cue, when I lifted up the blinds to look a little bit more, they turned completely around and they just stared at me. Or like they were just looking at me, and I couldn't see anything. That's what was so terrifying, is not knowing, like, who was that? They were just standing there. So I, of course, closed the blinds as fast as I could. Turned off all the lights in the house, so they couldn't see my shadow standing there. And I was staring and looking, and they just stood there for like 15 minutes, 20 minutes straight, staring directly at the house. Like, I wasn't sure if they sensed that I was still watching them, and that was why they were staring at me. But that was probably one of the most terrifying things I think I've ever seen. Other than one night when my mom were out driving, and I'll have her. We'll tell you the story. We're out driving one night, and we were with my sisters and everything, and something ran across the road, and like she slammed on the brakes, and we saw it, and we always used to joke that it was a jumping monkey, because whatever it was hopping, but not like a bunny. We're talking like how monkeys kind of do that jump sort of thing, and it had a big long tail and these huge eyes, and they were like, it could have been like a set the light, because you know how lights are when they're in the nighttime. If they hit something like eyes or something, they kind of shine a little weird. I thought they looked red to me. So of course, that was terrifying for a kid, but we'll go over that a little bit more when I'm interviewing her. But that was, for me, one of the most terrifying things, though, for real, was that night, because I was all by myself. I don't have self-defense techniques. Of course, now I know how to handle myself a lot better. Dealing with the kind of content that I have to deal with, and interviewing the people that I've interviewed, and hearing these stories of survival, and it's very eye-opening. So I feel like I have a bigger respect for people who survive those onslaughts, and those particular feats of violence that happen to them. It's a big deal. So, but yeah, that was pretty terrifying. Imagine somebody staring there at you for, 20 minutes. And I just stared back at them, and I'm like, maybe I'm creeping them out staring back, but they couldn't tell. I wouldn't think that they would know. I would think they would imagine I went back, or maybe I was just going to bed. But I feel like they could sense that I was watching them. That was so terrifying, though, because I couldn't see them before. The light came on, like I didn't see a shadow or anything, and you could still see, like, from the moonlight that was out, you could still see shadows and stuff, but when the light flickered, they were just suddenly there, and I don't technically discount supernatural phenomena or anything like that. I guess I can believe in some of that stuff, but that's not the first thing that come to mind. Usually it's like, oh, well, maybe it's just a stalker or killer or some creepy dude or something, a drug dealer or something across the street is my first go-to, but the way he just kind of appeared there was pretty terrifying. But anyways, we will kind of step away from that, and we'll start our interviews here in a minute. But I like to lay a little bit of knowledge in these podcasts. As you know, they are for education, of course, not just entertainment or anything like that. And I know a lot of you guys are probably really upset because we haven't done a serial killer thing in a while. Trust me, we're gonna get back to some of the true crime stuff. We had some really good interviews that we wanted to do for psychology, because psychology is really important. I feel for a lot of us to understand how serial killers work, and for us to understand why people do bad things, we need to better educate ourselves. And these aren't just to entertain, because you guys hear those podcasts that go over serial killers each episode. They're a dime a dozen, and I don't want to bore you guys. And I'm not saying those podcasts out there are boring. They're not. They're fascinating and full of facts. But I want to stick to a little bit more psychology related stuff, so that way we can understand why people do those bad things. And of course, we'll always talk about the regular, the average serial killer, and of course the usual round of suspects like, Jeffrey Dahmer, Richard Ramirez, Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, Eileen Wuornos, Zodiac. We'll always talk about those guys. And every time around Halloween, I always bring it back to that episode of If you guys haven't watched it, American Horror Story Season 5, Hotel, my favorite season of American Horror Story, I think, other than Asylum. And I love how they did the guy who ran the hotel, James Patrick March, who was kind of a different version of H.H. Holmes, which I thought was pretty cool. And H.H. Holmes, we'll do an episode about him, around December. So keep an eye out for that. Oh, and Jack the Ripper. Hey, and I've got a guy who is going to be on the show who's actually consulted on case when they've talked about them before. He's a teacher of forensics out there in England. I think that's pretty cool. But he's going to be on the show in December, so be open for that. But this particular. I actually lost my train of thought there for a second. I'm sorry. It's been a long couple of days. Oh, it's been crazy. But for these, of course, we try to do the education. So I mean, we don't want to just bombard you guys with just serial killer stuff. But in that episode called Devil's Night on American Horror Story, they it's the night where, of course, naturally we all know Halloween. Some people call it Devil's Night. I refer to it as Samhain. It was a festival, and it celebrated, when the veil was most thinnest between the living and the dead. And the ghosts and goblins and beings could come out and, party amongst the living and could go out and walk around, be free, just for one night, and that's, I don't know. Some people see it kind of like as a bad thing, but I can see it as a good thing too. I feel like if the spirits from down there could come up, maybe the spirits from above could come down. You think about those kinds of things. Think about the positive sides of stuff rather than just the negative. But the festivals and stuff like that. So on this particular episode, they decided to have James Patrick March, who ran the hotel, who died. He was a serial killer. And he had apparently trained all these other serial killers who we know as Jeffrey Dahmer, Richard Ramirez. Ted Bundy wasn't a part of the group, but Gacy was, Eileen Wuornos, the Zodiac, like all of them. There's this iconic scene where they're all sitting around a table and they're talking and partying and laughing, and he's they're toasting and drinking, and I could never forget that scene because the characters were they acted just like they did, like when you read stories about them or hear interviews or see interviews happening of these killers and stuff, and it was so fascinating to me because just seeing them all around for that day, I don't know, just something about it. I always thought that was so interesting. But for the particular, for our educational side, I always like to bring up pumpkins. Pumpkins are kind of, I feel like they're kind of taken for granted this time of year. The reason I say that is because pumpkins are, they're useful. I feel like the only time anybody ever really wants anything that's pumpkin related, of course, is when fall happens. And that makes sense. It's for me, it's a sense memory thing. It's like, as soon as you smell pumpkin, it's like, oh, okay, as we're getting into fall, it's time, get in the fall mode. For me, like, if I feel like it's kind of chilly outside, even if it's not, fall, I'll put on pumpkin spice, smell stuff so I can, kind of get into that mode. Because it's my favorite time of the year. So I feel like pumpkins are kind of taken for granted. But I mean, I think it's so cool about a pumpkin is that you can, of course, eat pumpkins. You can eat the seeds. They're a fun activity. If you guys have never carved a pumpkin, it's a lot of fun. Some people don't like it because of all the gunk and stuff you have to get out of it, but I think that is so cool. And we do a pumpkin each year, and I enjoy it. It's my favorite. So we want to go over where pumpkins, not so much where they come from, but we want to talk about jack-o'-lanterns. The idea of a jack-o'-lantern I always thought was so neat because a lot of people just think jack-o'-lanterns are kind of, it's something that's just always been. Well, jack-o'-lanterns have been around, I think, since, I think they said it's like, 10,000 years that they have been, all sorts of things have been doing, thousands of years they've always been doing, stuff with pumpkins and things like that. And I think that's pretty cool. And but it always wasn't just pumpkins. It started off with turnips. I know out in, I believe it was Ireland. But apparently there was a guy who his name was Jack. Jack was very mischievous, and he was very bad, and he would go out in places and steal stuff, and he would also go to pubs, get in fights and things like that. Well, one night he was on his way home, and I can't remember if he was being chased by people because he stole something. I think that's part of how the story goes. And then another tale, he's just kind of walking. Well, the devil jumps up in front of him and says he's going to take him to hell for him being so bad, and he's going to kill him. Well, he makes a deal with them, he runs from him, and he climbs into a tree. And the devil chases him to a tree. Jack jumps out of the tree. Devil's still there. So he carves a cross into the tree, trapping the devil. And he says, devil, look, here's the deal. I promise you that I will let you out of here as long as you can't take me to hell. The devil, he agrees. He's like, sure, fine, why not? Okay, I won't take you to hell. So he takes him, and finally, at some point later on in life, Jack eventually dies. Well, Jack was so bad that his soul couldn't get into heaven, but he also couldn't get into hell either. So Jack asked the devil, he says, well, it's so dark, I can never find my way. I need help to find my way. And apparently the devil laughed and said, fine, here. He tossed him an ember straight from hell and said, you can use this to light your way. Jack took out a turnip, which was his favorite food. He hollowed out the turnip and he stuck the ember in it. And apparently he's cursed to walk the earth for all of eternity. And that's where we first get the jack-o'-lantern, because he made a lantern to help find his way for the fire from the depths of hell. I always thought that was very fascinating. And that's, if you've ever seen a turnip, very weird little thing. And when you carve them out, and it is kind of a creepy looking jack-o'-lantern. It's pretty creepy. I actually carved one out. Was it last year? Yes, last year. And I just think that's fascinating to me, how that all kind of, comes about. Of course, we have different poems and stuff about them, like the Cornish version of the Will-O-Wisp. I think the rhyme goes, Jack o' Lantern, Joan the Wad, who tickled the maid and made her mad. Light me home, the weather's bad. And there was another one, another poem, I believe it was by John Greenleaf Whittier, who was born in Massachusetts in 1807. And it was entitled The Pumpkin, circa 1850. And it goes like this. Oh, fruit loved boyhood, the old days recalling, when wood grapes were purpling and brown nuts were falling, when wild, ugly faces we carved in its skin, glaring out, the dark, the candle within. I think that's pretty cool. Sorry, I had to get my my English accent going for you guys. Kind of talk about those very cool pumpkins. Sorry, I have to kind of do that sometimes when I'm talking. Anywho, I don't want to bore you guys to death with this monologue of me just chit-chatting. So what we're going to do is we're going to break, and when we come back, we're going to have a couple of interviews from people in my family, and I'll have them explain who they are, and hopefully this will be kind of fun for you guys. And on the next episode after this one, we're doing multiple personality disorder. And then the one after that, we're interviewing Wendy L. Patrick, the famous Wendy L. Patrick. And if you guys don't know her, please look her up. Her rap sheet is incredible. This woman does so much. When I interviewed her, I said, how do you do all this stuff? And she says, by the grace of God. Because I'm telling you, I don't even know how she has time to eat, sleep, and much less breathe. She is awesome. So I cannot wait for you guys to hear that interview. We got some really cool stuff going. We might have a celebrity coming up on the show at some point. I have also reached out to our congressman to do an article. That won't be necessarily a podcast. That'll be an article, so you guys will have to read that. But it'll be an article about North Carolina, where, of course, I am, was born and raised. And I love this state, and I think it's pretty cool. And we have a lot of history here, as does a lot of the world, of course. But, yeah, so got a couple of cool things you keep an eye on for. But anyways, let's go ahead and slice this thing open and start poking around, and I'll be right back for you guys. Alright, I am here with Tracy and Mike, my mom and her boyfriend, and we are going to ask them some scary or creepy stories that have happened to them. My mom's got a good one when she lived out in West Virginia. Go ahead.
Okay, when I had moved and had gone back to visit, and I was like 17, and some friends and I went up to this old place out of town. It was like where everybody would go up there and party. And there was we found an old chimney. The only thing that was left was just the chimney. And we dug around and found bones where you would start a fire. The bones looked like they were human. Actually, they end up calling the law in later on to find out, what the bones belonged to. But I never did hear anything more. I'd come back to North Carolina.
That's creepy. Have anything else that was pretty creepy that happened to you?
Well, at the old house when Timmy passed away, I still had an urn in the bedroom, but I didn't sleep in there anymore. And the doorknob kept locking from the inside. So, I'd go up to try to get in the bedroom, and the door would be locked. So Mike started living with me, and we still didn't live in that room because it had not been renovated yet. So Mike decided one day that he would, when I wasn't there, the room had locked, so he decided he would switch the doorknobs. So he took the doorknob from your old bedroom and put it on the bedroom that Timmy and I stayed in, and Mike, go from there.
And because I thought the problem was in the doorknob itself, but it wasn't. The problem was in the room, because the new doorknob started locking itself.
Oh my God.
We've actually been sitting there watching TV. It was one of those old push pin doorknobs where you push the little pin in to lock it. We've been sitting there watching TV and heard the pin push in.
Oh my God.
I got up and walked around there and looked at the door, and sure enough, it was locked.
Oh my God.
But, so, I stayed there for a long time not knowing that Timmy's ashes were in that urn over the fireplace.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But I suggested to Tracy that if she would spread them, that a lot of that,
Whatever was left in the house.
what was going on, would probably cease. And sure enough, when she spread the ashes, the doorknob stopped locking itself.
It did.
Oh
It sure
my
did.
God.
And I know that it was true the night that I went to get in the bedroom, and he was in the bathroom with the door open, and he said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Oh, the doorknob just locked again." And his face was like a light, it was like white. And like I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "Well, I told you if you ever had a problem with that again to let me know." He's like, "I switched the doorknobs from Cameron's room and your room just to show you that it's not the doorknob itself, it's the room." And the ashes, Timmy's ashes were on the fireplace mantle, the big urn, but the little heart urn was in that bedroom. And I just feel like, it was time for him to go, and he was letting us know it was time for him to pass over. And I hadn't done it for a long time until I met Mike, and then, I knew it was time to move on, and I had to take the urn. The urn was actually super glued. We had to go and get a vice, a friend of mine had to take a vice grip and open the urn just to be able to set Timmy free.
Wow.
Because the urn was super glued, shut, which I did not know that, but
Wow.
yeah.
Hmm.
So
Oh.
it was pretty scary.
Yeah,
It wasn't
that's
scary, it was just, we knew that we were dealing with something more than it being a scary thing. It was,
Yeah. On
a
this plane.
spirit, yeah.
I knew it was going to take something outside of the physical realm to solve the issue.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was just wild, because that's the craziest thing that's ever happened to me. But once she spread those ashes, the doorknob never locked itself again.
Nope.
Wow.
And I spread them on Timmy's birthday.
Yep.
Over by where he used to live, on Shoreline Drive. We spread them over there, and from that point on, everything was okay.
Oh, and one more thing. I always wanted to do this. Testes.
You do have one more though, Mike. I want to hear about the morgue story again. That was a little
Oh, okay.
interesting.
Well, yeah, that was just last week. We were working under the New Bern Hospital, the hospital there in New Bern. according to the guy working with me, we were working almost directly underneath the hospital morgue. Well, we're under there in a really closed off environment. It's only like a 3.5 foot tall space. It's almost like what would be underneath your house, except for this and underneath the hospital. And so when we're under there, I do something I shouldn't do, which is smoke cigarettes. But I know I can get away with it under there, so I do it. Mm-hmm. Well, I had just finished smoking a cigarette, and so the air was thick with cigarette smoke, and that's all you could smell, because like I say, the air doesn't move. It's not being circulated under there. But we started smelling, me and my helper, we started smelling a candle burning. And we smelled this above the cigarette smoke. I mean, it was like we didn't even smell a cigarette anymore. We just smelled this candle burning. It lasted just a few seconds, and then faded off, and we didn't smell it anymore. But what was odd was we had just been talking about the afterlife and spirits and stuff like that whenever we started smelling it. Well, the next day, I'm telling a guy that works for the hospital, he's like a bigwig for them, I was telling him about our experience, and he says, well, that's odd, because I was just a little while ago, I was somewhere in the hospital, and I smelled a candle burning. He said, and there was no candles burning around me. He said it kind of puzzled me, because I thought, something might be on fire. So I looked around and walked around. He said, I never did find a candle burning or nothing. He said, but I smelled a candle burning too. And I thought it was wild that just within 48 hours, within 24 hours, that me and my helper had smelled it, and then this guy had smelled it also.
Oh my God. That's also pretty creepy. Wow. Well, thank you guys so much for letting me interview and ask you guys these questions. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks.
No problem. Bye.
All right, everybody. I am back now with my sister, Brittany. Brittany, say hello to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Brittany is living out in, where are you at right now, Brittany?
I'm in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Bowling Green, Kentucky. And
yeah.
We are going to ask her the same thing we've been asking everybody else. What was the creepiest thing that's happened to you? Everybody's got a crazy story of stuff that's happened to them, paranormal or otherwise. Mine was relatively of the normal, I would hope. And when I talked about in the beginning about the guy standing out there, staring back at me from the road, that was a little weird. We're going to ask my sister, what is the creepiest thing that's ever happened to you, Brittany?
Oh, shoot. Okay, I have two different encounters with me and my son, who is your nephew, and they both kind of tie in together with our stepdad, who had passed, almost 6 years ago. And the first one is my son was only 2 at the time. We're living out here in Kentucky, and he has never met our stepdad. Only seen a few pictures of him. We don't really talk about him much because, him being so young. There was one encounter where my son and I were in our bedroom, and there's no one else home, and I'm taking his shoes off, and he's looking past me, like over my shoulder, and he's grinning. I mean, just ear to ear grinning. I mean, just huge, big smile. And I look at him, and I said, "What's so funny?" And he said, "Timmy." I said, "Timmy." My heart kind of dropped for a second. I kind of got a little panicked, and I looked over my shoulder, and there was nothing there. And I looked back at Ryan, and he's just waving and cooing, and just, I don't even know how to explain it, just because he's only seen a couple pictures of him. He didn't know who he was, but in that exact moment, I just felt chills all over my entire body. And I knew in that exact moment that Timmy stopped in to say hello. So I thought that was kind of strange, especially because kids are so much more susceptible to seeing that kind of thing because they're a lot more open to it. The world hasn't really molded them into being or seeing or believing anything any differently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. My second encounter actually happened a couple months ago, and my roommate and I are home, and the way our house is set up is our laundry room is in the middle of the hallway. So you have to go through the hallway to get to anywhere in between different parts of the house. And she had her clothes in the dryer. I had clothes in the washing machine. I asked her to get hers out. She got them out. She came back into the living room, And as I'm putting my clothes into the dryer, I'm talking to her, and she's off to my left in the living room. I dropped some of my clothes on my dog, who is standing in front of the dryer. So I distinctively remember putting clothes into the dryer.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of my clothes fell on Diem, my dog, and I swiped them from Diem straight into the dryer. And closed the dryer, walked off, came outside with my roommate, and then we both came inside together, sat back down, and I realized that I did not turn the dryer on. So I was like, oh, well, I need to go turn them on. Went in there and I turned them on, and I noticed that there wasn't like this thumping sound as the clothes go around, so I opened it up. None of my clothes were in the dryer. None of them. I opened the washer lid, and you can tell that all of my clothes were thrown right back into the washer. It wasn't like the washer had just gone off and all the clothes were stuck to the side. No, it was like someone had deliberately taken my clothes from the dryer and put them back in the washer. And I honestly felt in that moment, I looked at Jessica and I said, did you do this? And she's like, no, and she didn't. And there could have been no absolute reasonable explanation as to how she could have done it, because she was standing in front of me the entire time in this 30-minute time period. No way she could have done it. And I looked at her and I said, I really feel like I'm losing my mind. I'm going crazy. And she's like, well, what? And I was like, I opened the dryer. My clothes are back in the washer. I know I wasn't just standing here for 5 minutes just looking at my clothes. I know I put them in the dryer. My heart fell to my stomach, and I got a little teary-eyed because I had honestly felt maybe I did just stand there. Maybe I didn't put them away like I thought I did, but I know I did. And it took me back to a time where our stepdad had played multiple pranks on us. I mean, you know it as well as I do.
Mm-hmm.
Big prankster. I mean, he definitely took advantage of our goodwill. And he had done that to me on multiple occasions where I thought I had clothes dried and they weren't, because he would put them back in the washer just to kind of tick me off. And I knew in that moment I didn't panic. I kind of had a peace come over me the same way as my first encounter, that I knew it was Timmy. So, yeah. I had never felt like I had actually was losing my mind, but in that moment, I really thought I was. So I feel like those two really stick out to me. I don't think I have any big encounters other than those two.
Those would definitely take the cake, though.
Yeah, and they tie in, and I feel like Timmy drops in every once in a while, kind of like with Mom's story, with her locks on her bedroom, just locking from the inside, that they all kind of go in together. We've all had little experiences, of him stopping in and saying hello and reminding us that, he's still around.
Well, that's very good and very nice thing to think about, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it helps me not feel so creeped out, so whatever works, right?
We also had an interesting thing happen one night, and this is something I talked about in the beginning. We called it the jumping monkey story.
No.
We don't really know if it was a jumping monkey. The more I think about it, the older I've gotten. I remember thinking I saw ears, but they could have been horns. We definitely saw the long tail, and we know
we definitely saw it turn in the middle of the road, right in the middle of our car. There's no street lights around. There's no houses around. I mean, we're in the smack dab middle of the country, and this thing stops, and it turns, and it looks at our vehicle, and I swear it smiles at us.
And
I got so scared, I dropped down on the floorboard of this car. I was terrified.
Yep, we were heading over, I forget, it was one of Mom's friends, I forget, Sonny, and we were heading over to his house, and he lived out, and it was this little house, but it was like tucked way back in the woods.
Yeah.
And of course, we're out here in North Carolina, and it was a good 15 minutes into the drive down to get down that road, and
it's pitch black outside.
It's pitch black, and it's just we're talking dirt gravel road, and on either side there's big long trees and hang down low, and it's just all woods on either side. And I don't think Mom slammed on the brakes when we were parked, because we were doing something. She was fixing something like a seatbelt or something had come undone, and she was fixing something, and she had parked the car. Then that's when we noticed something in the bushes, and then we saw it jump out, and it stopped in front of the car.
Yes.
And when I say jumped, I'm not talking like it just, I'm talking like it hopped like a bunny.
This thing, I mean, it was on one side of the road, and it jumped clear into the middle side of the road, and then it jumped off into like a field.
Yeah, and there were big jumps, big leaps, and it did have, of course, like I said, the lights in the beginning, the eyes were red, but like I said, it was probably because the lights were refracting off of, its eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't make out its face, but I remember seeing what you thought you saw, the smile. And,
yeah.
And then, of course, the ear, the horns, and then the big, long tail. The tail kind of looked like a monkey tail. So, Mom, of course, said it reminded her of a monkey, and we called it the monkey.
And I remember Mom at that point, she was like, maybe, there was a circus in town and one of them got out. I mean, she was trying to make just as much sense of it as we were, but the way it presented itself, you and I were terrified. I mean, Mom would bring up the jumping monkey trying to come get us, just trying to get us to do something, and we would be terrified.
Yeah, we did not like that jumping monkey story.
Although we were like 5 and 7 years old, it was still very scary.
Yeah, I was going to say, but I mean, even to this day, it still sticks out in our minds, and as the more and more, like I said, I've made of it later on, you never know what it could have been. It could have been a monkey, it could have been something else.
Exactly. That's in our late 20s now. Like, we still can't really make absolute sense of it. Yeah.
So, yep, those are our interesting stories that happened with us.
Yeah,
We've always
bizarre.
I was going to say, I didn't get to interview my stepmom or my dad, but I know my dad would have talked. He said he had a bunch of stuff, and he even found a woman's body one time, out in the woods where he worked, so I mean, he
had suffocated.
She had suffocated or OD'd. I can't remember the exact thing of what happened, but and I think I couldn't remember if she was nude or not when he found her, but it was definitely very creepy. But what's really weird about that is that I've tried to look up the incident that happened, and I did mention this to Mom, and I think I probably told you. I tried to look and find the incident where he found her, and I remember him finding her. And
I remember it being like a really big thing at that time.
And now I can't find anything on it. There's nothing, no news reports, nothing. It's just like gone, which I thought was kind of creepy in itself. But yeah, lots of very interesting stuff has happened to our family. So,
absolutely.
Well, anyways, Brittany, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. And
yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
No problem. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye.
All right, guys, we are back. I hope you guys did enjoy that really fun episode of Profile Matters. I know I did. It was a lot of fun being able to, all those creepy, scary stories. It's makes you think, makes you wonder, right? All right, guys. Well, I did just want to say before I wrap up that I hope you guys have had a wonderful month of October and that you guys have enjoyed your Halloween. Anybody who is still out there and we're a couple hours behind or whatnot, please be safe out there tonight. Please. It is it's a fun night and all, but it can get kind of crazy. Killers out roaming the streets, ghosts, goblins, I don't know. But, the natural threats, stuff that we can't see is definitely very present. So just be careful. It's true what my grandparents say, that the world has not changed. It's still just as crazy as it's ever been. The only thing that's changed is technology. And I agree. So please keep your wits about you guys, okay? My butt, and my fiance's butt, we're about to sit down with our pups, and we are going to be watching Season 2 of Stranger Things. And if you guys have not watched Season 1 of Stranger Things, you need to get on it. Because let me tell you something. Stranger Things is awesome. And Season 2 is going to be incredible. So please get on board the Stranger Things train if you have not. And also, if you've never watched American Horror Story, a couple of seasons are actually pretty good. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's pretty cool to watch. Slasher is also pretty good. If you guys like the slasher things, and into those kinds of things. Oh, really great show. Really, really great show is the new one called Mindhunter on Netflix. That's awesome. Now, I had been waiting for Mindhunter for months when they said it was first coming out. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, I know this guy's work, who's done the interviews with the serial killers. Back then, before they even called them serial killers, he called them sequence killers. So it was fascinating. And I watched the second episode the other day, and they, not to give anything away, I mean, you can already know just from the episode thing tells you who they interview, but in this episode, they interview Edmund Kemper. And Edmund Kemper was known as the co-ed killer back in the 70s. And it was spot on interview. And the guy they got to play him was, oh my God, he looked and talked and acted just like him. It was so scary. I'm sitting there watching, I was getting goosebumps just watching it. And it's fascinating, like, because I think our third episode that we did technically was, it wasn't really aired there. It was just on YouTube. It wasn't aired on Podbean. So anybody listening on Podbean, I apologize. Called The Carnivores, and it was about Jeffrey Dahmer and Edmund Kemper. So if you guys that want to check that one out and listen to it, you totally can. But yeah, so we were gonna write him. I was gonna write him a letter a while back, correspondence type thing, ask him some questions. Heard he doesn't really answer a whole lot of mail, and I'm sure now because of that episode, everybody's gonna be blowing up and sending all sorts of mail and stuff, and I don't expect to get anything back from him ever. But I heard he's so yeah, I was gonna try to do an episode about that, but that's okay. We have other stuff we can talk about as well, so do not worry. Got plenty we can talk about. Psychology and true crime, there is no shortage of either. So we have some really cool interviews coming down the pike for you guys, I promise. Next episode, it will be about multiple personality disorder. So keep ready for that. And then, of course, it'll just be me and our co-host, Dr. Natty, talking. And then after that, we have a interview with Wendy L. Patrick. Wendy L. Patrick is the coolest person. Like, she's, if you never listened to her book, Red Flags, you need to. It's on iTunes. Download it, listen to it. She's got the coolest voice, and she's so sweet. So just please listen to it. It's really great. But we got her on the show, and I'm super excited about it. And I know you guys are going to really love that episode. And so can't wait to air that. And I hope you guys are excited for it just as much as we are. And we got some other really cool guest stars coming, and may have a celebrity. Well, of course, they're celebrities, of course, but we may actually have like a celebrity TV celebrity, or television, or not television, but a movie star celebrity appearing on the show, if all goes well. And I've even reached out to our wonderful congressman to see if he wants to be, not technically on the show, but I'm going to write an article about our lovely state of North Carolina, and I want to interview him for it. So if he says yes, then that will be on the website, and you guys can read the article and whatnot and hear his responses and everything like that. So I think that's pretty cool. But anyways, I do hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. I hope you guys had a great month. And we look forward to having you guys back on, or I look forward to being right back here, and you guys listening and stuff. And hey, feel free, like I said, you guys please comment. If you ever have any questions, you just want to say if you liked it or if you didn't like it, or, I wouldn't keep doing this if I didn't think you guys were enjoying the content. So please just reach in, tell me. I mean, say, hey, dude, we like your voice. Hey, dude, we don't like your voice. Change what you're doing. Or, hey, guys, maybe you guys should do an episode about this or that. We've had some people send in requests, so we're going to honor some of those requests. Like I said, we're doing an episode about Jack the Ripper, in a couple months. And so just feel free, send us a request or ask us any questions or anything. Our emails are right there. Mine is killercam123 yahoo.com. Feel free to send me any kind of questions or anything you have, comments, whatever. We do requests, so just let us know. Okay. Anyways, I hope you guys have had a great night, and happy Halloween, and you guys stay safe, okay?